Hi everyone, Alice here. Today I'm going to do a video about autism. It's kind of my difficulties and kind of ways I try and help with them. So there's a couple of subcategories. I'm going to just talk a bit about each subcategory and then go on to the next one. So the first one is social differences. I've always been a very shy person. I've always not communicated with others, and apart from when I was really young, I would talk to anyone that would go into the house. But as things got more difficult in school, I closed myself up and lost any sort of socialization with anyone. And since as a child to now, my shyness has increased rapidly. I can barely go into a shop and ask for something unless I've got my partner with me. And it's really not a nice experience. Avoidance is another thing I've always struggled with. I don't know if this is the possible ADHD or autism, but as soon as a little thing sounds too difficult, I give up instantly. There's no two ways about it. Like something happened a few weeks ago. I've been vegetarian since November 2023. And a few weeks ago, I ended up having something that had meat in that I didn't know about until I had it. And since then, I've not bothered going back because I've lost that time frame that I was vegetarian. So what's the point in going back, even though I'm planning to, because it's more for the animal cruelty than for my own like health and stuff like that. Anxious and anxiety. I've been suffering with anxiety issues since pretty much a child again. I've always had severe anxiety. I've been diagnosed with a few different anxiety disorders, and through time they just feel like they've gotten worse as well. Socialization, I've kind of touched on this subject already. All through my life, I didn't really have any friends. I never really socialized with anyone. It was always me on my own. When my brother was in the primary school I was in the other part of the primary school. I would try and sneak to be with him because he's my brother. I knew who he was and things like that. But socializing, making friends has never been something I've been good at, and it's quite emotional and upsetting. Like the only people I've ever met and I call them friends hurt me. And I guess that's kind of where that story goes. This is more to talk about later, and that's fidgeting, stimming, things like that. Eye contact. This is something that I struggle with a lot. I do kind of two versions. I either do too much eye contact or no eye contact. It depends on the circumstances and how I am with masking and things like that. You probably all know that I speak really quietly. I have to increase my voice for videos because it's very difficult to hear me talking in general. I've been told that I've got like a monotone kind of voice. I wasn't aware of this until I read it in my like autism report, Apparently my voice is very monotone. I've not really investigated it much, but it's kind of like there's no change in speech or something. It's kind of just this kind of dull, quiet, dopey kind of voice which I've had, and I've always had that kind of voice. Another social difficulty I have is I try and cancel plans with anyone. I have, like, everyone has a social battery, and because I have chronic pain as well as mental health, autism, neurodevelopmental conditions, my kind of energy battery goes very quickly. So once I've done something which involves socialization one day, the next I am extremely exhausted, I'm really tired, I just want to be indoors and to my own kind of my special interest, my devices, I just want that. Another thing I've kind of spoke about, and that's the fact that I rely on my partner to talk for me in most situations. I only talk if it's kind of I've got no choice. I kind of have to talk, and it causes a lot of anxiety, panic attacks, and meltdowns. Another one that I was told in my assessment was I have very kind of basic kind of facial expressions, which I weren't aware of, but apparently my facial expressions are kind of very blank and plain. Another one is difficulty communicating. I've spoke a bit about this already. I really struggle to communicate. I sometimes either have an anxiety-based cough that comes out of nowhere, I stutter, or I just close up and I just kind of freeze and I can't talk. How it impacts my life. All these issues impact my life very much. Like, I can't really go out on my own because of my communication difficulties. So I kind of need someone with me, like my partner, with me to communicate on my behalf. I have difficulties eating. I have a choking phobia, as well as I struggle to eat with other people, but with the choking phobia, I can't not eat unless someone's present, so it's stressful. I lose friendships that I have made quite easily, mainly because they was not a real friend. They was just someone posing to be a friend. I've always had a difficulty of understanding people's intentions and kind of what they want. I think that someone does something nice, they're nice, and then I don't see the negatives unless it gets brought to the forefront. My partner's helped me with that quite a lot. And in general, I struggle with everyday life. My autism and my mental health issues affects me very much every day. Not one day do I go out where I'm free of anything, and I've kind of just learnt to get used to that now, but it's upsetting and difficult. Another one is my need for routine. Now, this is a kind of a on and off topic. Now, what I mean by that is I have to have a routine, but I can't seem to do a routine properly. I don't know if that's me or the possible ADHD. I don't know. But like I have certain set things that I have to achieve when I, for example, go to an appointment. I have to leave an hour before the appointment. I have to get and sit on a specific seat on the bus. If that seat's taken, I end up getting very anxious and I have to find somewhere else, which really does stress me out a lot. And I've got to get a drink from Cafe Nero before I go to the appointment. I have to have a cigarette before the appointment. And once, just before I go in, I need to chuck the cigarette in the bin that's outside the building. It's just a weird thing, but I have this feeling like something bad will happen if I don't do that set schedule and routine. I get extremely distressed and stressed when there's changes. I've struggled with change all my life. I know the world is constantly changing, so it's a very problematic difficulty to have. But like, there's something that recently has been happening, and it was really affecting me mentally and emotionally. I'm trying to kind of add this into my routine and my plans. Sorry, my rabbit's just running around. But it's really, really difficult because there was always a set thing that happened, and that set thing that happened is now not happening properly, and it's really affecting me. I have specific foods that's kind of it's not too much of a problem, but I go through stages where I have the same thing for quite a while. I then hate that it exists and go on to having something else for a while. It kind of jumps through every day, or no, every few weeks. Now the next one is stimming, and I have a lot to talk about with stimming. I have lots of different stims that I do. Nail biting, fidgeting, hand flicking, finger picking, fidget toys, and fidgeting with clothes. As a child, like a young child, I would always have this obsession where I would fidget with like labels on clothes. And I'd done that for years. I think I only stopped doing that when I was in my early teenage years. And then since then, other things have kind of took over. Like, I'm so grateful for fidget toys. They really do help, and they impact me quite positively. Yeah. But there's quite a lot of different things I do. Like, I hum quite a lot. It's something that I've noticed. I don't sing because I don't want anyone to hear me, and I have a horrible voice for singing. But I do hum songs quite a lot when they get in my head. But yeah, like, that's kind of my kind of stimming. Sensory issues. There's quite a few, and they're quite strange. For example, flashing lights, like for example, on emergency vehicles, they really make me feel really dizzy. Or flashing things on a TV makes me extremely dizzy. I have a very strong dislike of metal products. like metal cutlery, for example. I have to use plastic cutlery. I hate the feel and the texture in my mouth, like to my teeth touching the fork, for example. Bright colours hurt my eyes quite a lot. I like things being neutral colours. My hearing is actually better in my right ear to my left, which is weird. I don't know what that is or what causes it, but that's a strange kind of fact about myself. I have a very high pain threshold. I do hurt myself sometimes, but it's not really for a sensory release. It's more to help my mental health, that whatever's going on at that time. And there's another thing that I do, which is kind of what quite a few people that are autistic do, and that's when I'm around loud noises like loud motorbikes, for example. I would basically do that and cover my ears until the noise calms down. It does look a bit weird sometimes, but it hurts my ears, so I want to protect my ears. My special interests change throughout time, but there's some that have stayed for quite a while, and that's Amy Winehouse, The Sims 4 Police, The Ambulance Service, True Crime, Minecraft, a TV series called Bones, and autism and mental health are all things that I'm very interested in, and I study a lot about autism or mental health. But sometimes I stop liking certain things. There's a bit like funner things is like Stitch and Bluey. But yeah, I'm not really, I've got quite a few special interests, but not too many. Another one was masking. I've masked for a long time. Like, I never knew it was masking until it was mentioned to me a few years, I think it was last year or the beginning of this year, where basically I kind of try and take on people's identities, as that's my way of masking. Like, I get an obsession with someone and then I start dressing like them, I dye my hair like them, I get glasses like them if they wear glasses and things like that. And another thing is I kind of copy messages. Like, if someone sends me a message, I write the same wording in the message back to them, but worded differently. So yeah, that's kind of a bit to do with my autism. I don't know what level of autism I am. I don't know if it's level 1 or 2. I weren't ever told that in the report. But yeah, this was just kind of sharing my autism story in some respects. I hope it was quite informative. Thank you all for watching. Take care and bye for now.